You guys did great. Thank you. It's a joy to have you in the service, by the way. I just want you to know that. And I'll try not to put you to sleep, okay? I won't promise, but I'll try not to put you to sleep. Thank you. Uh, um, there was a little fellow, little boy. He was about 8, 9 years old enough to own a watch. And what he wanted for Christmas was this special watch. Wasn't too expensive, but somewhat expensive. And around Thanksgiving, he started to educate his parents on what he wanted for Christmas. And as the days towards Christmas grew, it got louder and louder. Every day, he would say, I want a watch, don't forget it. And then eventually what happened is that they would come to the breakfast table and there would be an ad on the breakfast table about the watch. And about a few days later, what happens, they got up one morning and on their mirror was an ad for the watch. He was marketing the watch. And that's all he could talk about. And finally, they got tired of it. And they said, no more. Just no more. We want you just to settle down. And I don't want to hear any more about watches or the watch will not appear. So he got quiet for a couple of days. And then one day at dinner, he said to his parents, you know what? I've been memorizing Scripture. I've been doing something a little different. And they were really impressed. And they said, well, what is it you're memorizing? He said, well, I'm memorizing Mark 13:37. And his dad said, well, if you know it, why don't you share it with us? And he said, well, that'd be great. And he said, here's the way it goes. It's a quote from Jesus. And Jesus said, and what I say to you, I say to all, watch. Just a hint, kids. But anyway. You know, what we want to do is really watch the season. We want to watch ourselves going through this journey. We want to be a part of the journey. But so often we get caught up at the beginning of the day just getting up and getting going. You know, you got to get to work, and then you got to go at lunchtime to get the presents, and you got to do this and that, and we just get caught up in the season. And sometimes it's wonderful, and sometimes it's like, oh my goodness gracious, I can hardly wait until I get through this Christmas season, get over Christmas, and get away from Christmas. I'm so tired of it. And yet, that is not really our objective. If we are mindful of Christmas present, instead of Christmas presents, we can embrace the season as never before when we are mindful of Christmas present. Scrooge was mindful of Christmas present. As you see these scenes, really what's happening to Scrooge, you see he's going within himself, and he's challenging himself, and he's saying, life is more than this. It's just got to be more than this, and I'm looking for it. And it took some angels, if you would. It took some spirits, if you would, that he allowed to come within himself and examine what he was thinking. And as he did, he started that process. You could see it this morning of transformation. He was thinking about what Christmas present was saying to him. And as we go through this process, you see, even at Christmas time, we could have a mystical experience. One of my first mystical experiences that I remember, the first one I ever remember, is I was 19 years old and I was in college. And I was going to be a Baptist minister. So I had to read my Bible. And I went out behind the dormitory where I lived. And there was a little stream, and I sat next to the stream, and I was reading my Bible one afternoon. And all of a sudden, I couldn't explain it because nobody had said this is supposed to happen to you. I had this mystical experience. I felt what I call the presence of God moving in and through me. Even as a Baptist, I did that, see? I just want you to remember that, okay? As a matter of fact, it was quite a profound experience for me. The next time I had one that I really remember that was really powerful, I was at Unity Village, and I was in a class there. I was still the minister at El Paso, but I was taking a class at Unity Village. And Anna Joy Schaus was the teacher. I'll never forget her. We've become good friends since. And as she guided us through a meditation, she said, I want you to go down this tunnel. And as you go down the tunnel, I want you to see some light. And so I'm going down this tunnel. This is really hard for me, by the way, to do this kind of thing, okay? I'd much rather just sit in the silence. But I went with it, and I went down the tunnel. I could see myself, imagine myself being in that tunnel. And then at the end of the tunnel, there was this light, and the light was an elevator. Or I'm sorry, it was a door. It was a glass door. And she said, either open the door or go through the door. It's up to you. And so I decided, of course, to do it the hard way. I was going to go through the door, so I saw myself stepping into the door. And then the door turned into an elevator, and it shot me up. And all of a sudden, for a brief moment, I had that mystical experience of knowing that I was one with everything, everyone. It wasn't individually, it wasn't like the people in the class that I was thinking about. Instead, it was more of who I am and knowing that I am connected with Source. I am connected with God. I am connected with that which created me. And I am connected with everything in creation. That I understood that I was one with God. It's a powerful, mystical experience. We can have those at Christmas, by the way. You don't have to wait until a special time. You don't have to go to Unity Village to have it. You can have it right here and right now as you take the time to be fully present this Christmas. And that's the key, because we're so drawn away. You know, mystical moments are not just for Merlins. They're not just for people who stay on the mountaintop. They're not just for yogis. But instead, they are for everyone, because we all come from God. We all are children of God. We all experience God. What we want to do is move from a journey of the past into the now, and to be in this now moment this Christmas. And you know, that mystical journey of the trip to Bethlehem is our story, individually and collectively. It is a story that's combined from Matthew and Luke, where they literally are in contradiction with one another. Where Matthew says, Luke says he was born in a house. I may have them backwards. And Matthew says, no, he was born in a stable. But that doesn't make any difference, because what we've done as society is we've tied the two stories together. And now what we see in the scenes of Christmas and in the manger scenes, we see the wise men and we see the shepherds at the same time. You see, it's become that wonderful myth, and myths have facts in them, by the way. Doesn't mean that they're not true. But we have this wonderful myth that takes place at Christmas, and it becomes our story if we allow it to. For example, did you know that the word Israel means searching for God in Hebrew? Metaphysically, it really means having dominion over our lives through God, through Spirit, through guidance. And that's what we all really want to do. We want to be in charge of our lives, but we want to do it by surrendering to the greater I am within, to the Christ within, as Jesus did. And as we do that, and we find that Jesus was born in Israel, also the story takes Jesus to Bethlehem to be born, Mary and Joseph. Jesus was with them, but takes them to Bethlehem to be born. Bethlehem means bread of life. It means where you come into an understanding that God is source. Come into understanding that there's only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, and that's God, the good omnipotence. Come into an understanding that says, I am a gift from God. Come into an understanding that I'm a spiritual being having this spiritual experience in the human condition. Coming into an understanding that Jesus is the way, shore, and showed us how to do that. That's part of the journey for Christmas, of seeking that and looking for that and experiencing that. Now, after Bethlehem, Jesus, with Mary and Joseph, went down to Egypt because Herod, who represents ego, was kind of out of control. Now, most of us have had an ego that's gotten out of control from time to time. Maybe some of you experienced it this week. I don't know. I know I do on a fairly regular basis. It seems to be out of control in the moment. My thinking isn't very good. That's when I know it's really out of control. And so what happens is that as that ego gets out of control, I have to go to Egypt, if you would. We have to take that journey to Egypt. Egypt in this case means a place of refuge, a place where I can be away from the ego, settle in, look at myself, and admit what's going on in my life. And as I do that, I start to heal. I start to let go of the past, and I am in the journey as the witness, as the observer. They came back to Nazareth. I love the meaning of Nazareth. You see, Nazareth was in Galilee. Nazareth in Hebrew means the protector of the sprout. Metaphysically, it means the protector of the light, the divine within as we discover it, as we experience it. When we start our journey, when we become aware and more aware of the journey we're on, what happens is we need to have people around us who support us. We need to be in Nazareth, if you would, where that idea is sprouting, where that idea is growing. And we need to be nurtured, protected, and loved during that time. And so we allow that to happen as Jesus and Joseph and Mary did by living in Nazareth. And then the next part, if you would, is that Galilee is the most fertile part of all of Israel. Green valleys, orchards, beautiful area. And what happened is in Galilee is where a spiritual thought, metaphysically, appears. And you go back to Nazareth, which is part of Galilee. You stay in Nazareth and you let it grow and mature. It's fertile. It's a seed of thought. It's understanding that the divine is within each and every one of us, and if we cultivate that, if we nurture that, if we allow ourselves to step into that, we then experience the journey on a personal basis. Sometimes we get so busy that we forget to eliminate the weeds in our lives. And as we do that, we get a little sideways. And that can happen this time of the year. Now, if you take Vicki's advice, and she's in Charlottesville now, she left this morning after the first service to support Patricia Lansky, who has just published a book. But anyway, at a special opening. And anyway, Vicki says what every week just about? Before you get up in the morning, 5 blessings, right? When you do that, it sounds like a simple thing, but if you stop and do that, you center yourself. You set an intention for the day. And then she says, during the week, as you're thinking about it, you find people talking, find a couple people you can talk to about what's happening in your life, if you so desire, or in their lives. And from some of those, you're going to find somebody who wants to come to unity. Doesn't need to come to unity, but wants to come to unity. And so as they do that, we start that day off. We find ourselves starting the journey off in a beautiful way. The other thing I want to share this morning is another journey. It's another Christmas story. It's considered the third creation story in the Bible. It's by far my favorite part of the Bible, especially in the Gospels. And it says in John 1, "In the beginning was the Word, the Logos, the mind, thought, consciousness. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God." I think of that as that creative light is now within each of us. It was created with us at the beginning. It was created in Jesus, and he became the demonstrator of that light. The understanding that you and I can grow and be that light also. A shining light. Most primordial faiths used water as a symbol of rebirth. The Hebrew scriptures used light. Water represents a little darkness. Light is light, and we all know what that means. And so it was a change in the Hebrew scriptures as they talked about this light. And it said that in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not comprehend it. We're beginning to. But anytime there's an absence of love, there's going to be actions. There's going to be the ego out of control that's going to affect us in this human condition. There was true light, which coming into the world enlightens every man, every person. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. but we are knowing him today because we are understanding that he, that she, is God within us. And who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. Interesting concept. We are not born of the flesh. I know we're taught that. But we really, in this scripture, says we are born of God. We are the children of God. We are the heirs of all that God is. So being in the now moment. And so I look back at some of my notes from the book, The Power of Now, by Eckhart Tolle. And I took a couple of those quotes. One kind of goes back to last week when we talked about peace as Advent. And he made an interesting statement. And this is a hard one for us to remember sometimes. Don't look for peace. Don't look for any other state than the one you are in now. That's being in the presence. Otherwise, you will set up inner conflict and unconscious resistance. If all I want is peace, and I fight for it, I'm going to set up resistance, I'm going to set up attachment, and I'm probably not going to feel it or experience it. But he says, all unhappiness and struggle dissolve and life begins to flow with joy and ease. Forgive yourself for not being at peace. The moment you completely accept your non-peace becomes transmuted into peace. That's really cool. That's so true of all of our healing. The moment I admit that I'm in a dark place, the moment that I admit that I'm hurting, the moment that I admit I'm not where I want to be any longer, I don't feel at home. The most amazing things happens when I bring it up. It disappears, and what I want appears as I affirm it. And so I step into this light. I am this light. I'm an expression of God, and you are also. The second quote, he says, as soon as you honor the present moment, all unhappiness and struggle dissolve, and life begins to flow with joy and ease. When you act out the present moment awareness, when you are aware that you're on a journey and you are experiencing the journey, not the end of the journey. That's not your target. It's just being in the journey, being in the what is, being in your beingness, in your isness. When you're able to do that, you see, we are able to act out that present moment awareness, and whatever you do becomes imbued with a sense of quality and a sense of care, and most important, a sense of unconditional love. One of the things that you feel here on Sunday mornings, and if you weren't here, we wouldn't feel it, is unconditional love. Might think about it, might say, I wonder what it's like, but we wouldn't experience it. And we do experience that. This is, and you are, a group of people who know how to express that Godness within you as unconditional love. I've seen it over and over again. Even though we have times we may disagree, we do it with love. We do it with understanding. With conflict, there is discussion. And from that discussion, because of love, differences are adjusted, and the conflict goes away. You see, we are living in the journey. We are living in that present moment. Eckhart Tolle also told a story, some of you have heard, I'm sure. A beggar had been sitting by the side of the road for many years, some 30 years, as a matter of fact. And one day a stranger walked by, and the beggar said to him, spare me some change. Mumbled the beggar, mechanically holding out his old baseball cap. And as he held the baseball cap, he was expecting the stranger to do that. And the stranger says, I have nothing to give you. And the old man looked dejected, disappointed. And he said to him, let me ask you, what's that you're sitting on? And the beggar said, well, I'm sitting on the box here. It's a wooden box. And he said, well, how long have you been sitting on that box? He said, for 30 years. He said, what's in the box? He said, I don't know, I guess nothing. So what he did is he said to the man, open up the box and look inside. And as the stranger insisted that he do that, the beggar did. And when he opened it up, to his astonishment, to his disbelief and elation, he saw a lot of gold coins. He'd been sitting on his wealth all the time because he wasn't in the journey, because he wasn't looking within himself. And that's what Eckhart Tolle is saying here. Not inside any box, but somewhere even closer, inside yourself, is where we find the truth, where we find the Christ, where we find that ability to be in the journey and enjoy the journey and love the journey, even though a lot of stuff is happening around us. Because we're in the human condition, things aren't just going to get okay because we've come to unity. They're not just going to get okay because we understand Jesus is our way shore, because we understand that within us is the life of God itself, that we can express that. Stuff's going to happen to us still because we're still in the human condition. But it's how we go through that journey that makes the difference. It's how you and I step forward during that journey with faith. It's how you and I say yes to surrendering to the Spirit within. You are a divine expression of what God is. That's unconditional love and wisdom, compassion, understanding, faith, joy, and love. And it's that love that we celebrate on our journey. God's greatest gift to us is love. But there's another gift that was implanted upon our creation. Some kind of unique way, mystical way it comes out. And it's called the I am, the higher self, the spiritual self. And that was a gift, because it's by going through the I am that we get into the now moment. And we're in that now moment, we are then on the journey, and we know we're on the journey. We experience the journey. See, it's a gift that is wrapped and hidden at times because it requires us to unpack and unravel its meaning. It's kind of like the onion. You peel the onion, as all of us know, layer by layer. And sometimes we have the onion within us we have to peel. And in order to do that, we become in the now moment and recognize where we are and where we are on our journey. And it enables us to continue that journey not only to Bethlehem, but to Jerusalem. Because Jerusalem represents the higher consciousness in all of us. Jerusalem is the highest point in all of Israel. Kind of cool as a city. And so as you go there, you are going to a higher consciousness. You are on a journey to understand who and what you are and to allow that to be within you. So what I would suggest is, and leave with you, is slow down your mind. Look within yourself and connect with the gift of the I am. And be in the journey of Christmas present. You can still get the presents, but be in the journey of the Christmas presents. Now, as we prepare for meditation, our singers, our beautiful singers, are going to come forth, and they're going to lead us in what? Away in a manger. Last week's was What Child Is This? Away in a Manger. And then Robin